Hi there, folks. My name is Lauren Taggart, the Director of Sales and Marketing here in ThinScale Technology. I am delighted to have with me today one of our customers, Trevor Clark, who is the CEO and founder of ShyftOff. Trevor, thank you so much for joining me today. It's lovely to see you again.
Thank you for having me, Lauren. Appreciate you having me. Excited to talk a little bit about ThinScale today and answer a bunch of questions.
Absolutely. So maybe let's start off. Tell me a little bit more about Shift Off, your mission, your values, and how that guides your day-to-day operations, Trevor.
Yeah, so our belief, we basically created an Uber. We say like Uber Black for contact centers. So we're basically leveraging a flexible gig economy remote workforce to in the contact center space, which has a lot of applications for longtime contact center operators. You know that there's always been a challenge to meet interval level staffing demands, seasonality. You're always challenged to get the best talent out there, and then you're always pressured by cost, and we help on all three of those. And so our company is basically the underpinnings is technology. So we're leveraging technology to make it possible to have the exact number of people you need at exactly the right time. Are highly competent, uh, highly experienced contact center agents, and obviously with the technology, we're able to greatly reduce the cost of operating.
Awesome. I love that and love that ThinScale is part of that technology stack as well for you guys. Can you maybe tell me a little bit more about your company culture? It's something particularly in the contact center space that comes up a lot. What values do you consider most important?
To me, the culture is all about winning and winning for our customers, making sure that um, the companies that trust us with their customers are very happy that our agents are performing at the highest possible level. And that's very different from customer to customer. Some of our clients need agents to be selling, or more often to be providing a certain level of service, whether that's CSAT, measured in CSAT or measured in Net Promoter Score, those kind of things, um, and solve problems. And so to me, it's all about making sure that we have those agents in the right place at the right time. And the only way to really do that is to create this culture of being the best. And so that's a big part of it. When you talk to anyone on our team, we have a relatively small core team. Like I said, we're using technology, a lot of agents, a small core team. Everyone here is here to win, and I love that about our culture. And uh, you know, I love that when we face a problem. In fact, the thin scale, how that came to be at ShiftOff was we're faced with a problem, and we don't take no or losses. We don't accept those, and we push right through and we go figure out how to solve the problem for our customer. And I think that's the culture I'm proud of at ShiftOff, and I think that transcends throughout our organization.
Absolutely. And I love that because for me, working with customers that share the same values and culture as us, like we always go above and beyond to try. And that's why the technology is what it is today because it's been built by the voice of our customers too. So I love to hear that Shift Off have the same values. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So talk to me the past 5 years, dare we even say, and go back there, but how has Shift Off evolved over the recent years and what are your goals for the future?
Yeah, I mean, we are constantly evolving. We quadrupled our company last year. So we're just on an incredible high growth trajectory, and the year before that was two or three times growth. I mean, we're just on this pretty exciting growth trajectory. You always have to be rebuilding and reevaluating and growing along the way. Otherwise, that'll stop, and it's very painful. And so our evolution, like we're just continuously evolving. We're looking for better ways to operate, better ways to appeal to our customers. We're looking to basically always looking to solve problems that maybe have existed. And again, back on the thin scale side of things, remote bring your own device agent security is a big challenge, especially when you look back over the last 5 years. Not everyone's been a lot of people don't understand it, but at the end of the day, for our model to work, you have to enable the bring your own device remote worker. And so that type of problem, we see those problems every day. I had one problem last week that popped up in a different part of our operation, and it's pretty awesome. You find these issues, and you blitz them, and you solve them, and then you end up on the other side of that problem with like the most scalable, best solution. It's like, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of all inventions, or something like that. So we find ourselves in that position quite a lot, but we're always basically trying to break down these barriers. And so that's as you grow at 4x or more annually, you're going to hit barriers very quickly, and so your ability to kind of push through them is key. So that's how the company's evolved. It's iterative. I mean, we have big long-term strategic moves that we make, but then a lot of times we run up on an issue that's maybe a little bit more urgent, and we have to push through it.
Sure. Appreciate that. No, so it sounds wonderful, and like I'm excited to see what the future holds as well for you guys, with us by your side ultimately.
Yeah.
You've touched briefly and throughout this conversation on what the partnership with ThinScale, but ultimately, what made you decide to partner with ourselves in ThinScale?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some remote workforce solutions in place, bring your own device, highly secure solutions that our customers have signed off on. Their CTOs, their whoever's the decision maker in that case, have said, yeah, this is sufficient. This is great. And then we brought a new customer on last year in a more regulated, more like a strict uh, position from the culture from their end on data security. They don't mess around. When in doubt, they add layers of security, and I think that's a good, in a lot of ways, a good approach. But with that in mind, we actually weren't ready for that customer. We didn't have a solution in place, and they were finding, not big flaws, but little things that they were like, well, your current setup is fine, but this one particular issue could happen. I'll be honest, at first I was like, oh man, this is a little frustrating. I'm not exactly sure how to solve this problem. Um, and then we called you guys, and we had some awareness of ThinScale. We'd used it with a prior partner in a very, narrow scope. And I thought, you know what? Maybe that'll solve the problem. Because you guys are installing software on the endpoint, essentially. The way I describe it is, you then gain full control over that device, and it's permission based only. So unless I say you can do it, you can't do that on the machine. And to me and to my team, we were really convinced that that was the right approach. And then we brought the solution to our new customer, and they were also convinced. Now, this is a really interesting kind of twist, because they had never ever done remote or bring your own device, and so their their concerns were a little bit heightened, and so we were working through that, and wasn't going to sit here and try to convince them to lighten their security protocol by any means. So we actually brought a machine, because you can't even screen share the app, right? Like we brought a device to them, and we sat down with our CTO, and we walked through the whole thing. And you could see the room. They were at first like, they came into the room, and they're like, we don't know how this is going to play out. We don't see the path. And then by the end of it, they're like, wow, that'll work. And they were throwing us the hardest questions, and we got through it in a pretty spectacular way. And it's only gotten better since then. So again, ThinScale is really the solution for us to get that customer on board with scaling.
Absolutely. I love to hear that. And it sounds like an ideal customer. I'm glad that we could have helped getting that business for you guys. Before ThinScale, did you have a policy in place for BYOD? It sounded like you did, but maybe a little looser, if that's fair to say.
Yeah, we did. We have a few different ways we were locking down the devices. We were leveraging VDI, uh, and we had some good tools for that. There were times when we found some limitations, especially in the contact center space. There were times when we would test out some VDI solutions with different CCAS uh, softwares, and there would be latency and issues with those tools, and obviously you can't deploy software that's basically going to bring down the quality of your connection to the customer. And so we had to find workarounds for that, and workarounds typically are now exposure to risk. Anyway, some of it was okay. There were the easy part of those other solutions were the deployment was easier, and to be honest, like we liked that, right? Because we're dealing with thousands of agents that need to be there quickly. Deployment's key, but we there were trade-offs, and so then when we got to the more I would say more sophisticated security kind of mindset, maybe a little bit higher stake security, not so much sophistication. Some of those like flaws and those downsides we were kind of made the customer a little like uneasy, and so rather than kind of continue with those, and it wasn't like a deal breaker, but it was like not ideal. Um, and so I guess that was some of the impetus to make the change, which was all right. How do we lock this down from all angles, not just the 99% of the angles.
Absolutely. And like I think that the story that you told as well about your customer, like at the end of the day, it is proven that it can be done. So it's really nice to see that in a space of one meeting, you were able to transform them all to prove that it can be done. And the hardening of the endpoint is absolutely where we obviously fit in and help that with you guys. What were the key outcomes that you have prioritized for your BYOD deployment, scalability, security, and how did we help meet this?
Yeah, I think one thing for us, and we've always had this philosophy, is to sort of not try to cut corners in these situations, and I want to be able to show a prospective customer or an existing customer, this is our policy, this is the technology we use, this is how we deploy it, et cetera, and then almost immediately say, oh, okay, these guys know what they're doing. These guys are going to protect my customers. They're going to protect my company. And we've just brought this really, really strong answer to the security question that's not even debatable. So that's my strategy on this. I don't want this to be a discussion. I want you to see our policy and just be like, it's a no brainer. They know how to protect my customers and my company. And and honestly, when we started sharing some of the literature that ThinScale shared with us, to our customers, say, look, this is the documentation here, and then we showed them our deployment strategy. It was a oh yeah, I don't need to see anymore. So for us, that's a key outcome. It gives me confidence we have the right solution. Gives obviously our customers confidence, and then the next level is execution, and my team is then how do we make sure this is scalable and we can run it reliably, because we don't want as an outage when our customers need 1,000 people, like, well, we can't have a thin scale outage or a VPN outage or anything like that. And so creating a reliable system that we know how to troubleshoot if there are problems, or always will be some things pop up. um, and so I had my team start shifting focus there, and every step of the way we were pretty impressed with the level of thought and design that went into the product. And then once they became fully like up to speed on it, then deployments are a breeze. We went from the first one deployment, maybe it took us a month or a couple weeks to really fine tune. I think we had another deployment last week that happened and no one even knew, because we just have it on auto. It's automatic for us now. So that was a big part of it, and I think that's working really well too.
Absolutely. I think once you get your head around, and like a lot of our backend is very, very granular because allows you to lock down and have that zero trust policies, right? But once you get your head around that, it's very scalable, because any customers or prospects that I meet, I think that they look at our backend and go, wow. And then when they actually realize the reasons behind that for all the security enforcements that you have to put in place. But once you have those, it's very easy to duplicate profiles and scale that up. So delighted to hear that that's working for you guys too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That level of complexity and challenge of setup is a very good thing. Um, because if it's too easy, and there are a lot of products out there that basically say, "Oh, it's just quick, flip a switch, you're in." That one would concern me because we know with a fine tooth comb every single permission that is allowed on every device. There's no question. We know with high confidence what is going on these devices, and I think a lot of that is because of that initial setup. Had to think through every single aspect of that and understand it intimately.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just, I think where we differentiate from a lot of products, and you've probably seen that whenever you were looking at us too, Trevor, is that we're just ultimately start off with zero trust, enforce all policies rather than we have no leaks, rather than looking for the leaks. Is how
Right.
I always put it to people. So delighted that ended up securing all your devices too. So awesome. Cool. So we touched, obviously we're talking about security a lot here. Interested from your perspective as one of our customers, how you see the security threat landscape evolving.
The threats are coming at us. Whoever's developing the next threat, right? The next malware, whatever is coming at us next, they're probably 4 or 5 steps ahead. I just go to sleep at night knowing that there are people out there really trying to solve those problems and make life a little difficult for everyone here. I try to stay a few steps ahead. I think the permission only approach that you guys take is one of those ways. And again, I sleep pretty well at night knowing that that the software and stack we're using is going to make it really hard for those guys who are a few steps ahead trying to find their way in. The other thing that concerns me when I think of security is in the context of AI, how much acceleration of the threat is going to happen now that you've got machines able to process different opportunities into an organization at a much faster speed and without limitations of a kind of human capacity. I think that scares me a little. But again, another reason to be a little bit more protected than not, and not to cut corners.
For sure. Yeah, I think security is something that now no organization, no matter what they do, has to have a look at. And that's everything from retail shops, to businesses like yourself from the CX space. So wonderful to hear that you're looking at that too. But glad to hear that you're sleeping at least well at night. Hopefully, we're helping with that too, Trev.
Yeah, it's always good.
Very good. Can you maybe tell us a little bit how ThinScale allowed you to validate and secure those devices, particularly on the BYOD side? I think that's something that comes up as concern for a lot of prospects and customers that we talk to.
Yeah, so having that sort of back and forth data transfer from the device itself to our database and our ThinScale deployment. I from what I've seen and how we kind of talk about security internally is there's a very detailed log and data around the end user's device that most offerings don't provide. So if you're doing pure VDI deployment, you're not going to get a lot of information about the device. You're getting internet connections. You're getting some data that's interesting, but it's not doesn't paint the full picture. But now that we're basically deploying software to the endpoint, you can have a high degree of confidence that the device meets standards, is in the location you expect, is connected to the internet and the manner that you expect. It has hardwired connections to your headset. Even, I mean, you can set all of these things to ensure that the agent is who they say they are. At least there's more data to compare to make sure that you have that security, that the device is not compromised, and that it's connected in a way that you approve. To me, it's the full picture. Without putting this uh, software on the device itself, you're missing a huge part of it, and it's very easy, I think, for bad actors to kind of find their way into your organization, and you may never see it. So for us, the confidence level has dramatically increased when we are able to deploy this. It's just in general, just having that level of information. The degree at which we have control and visibility with ThinScale uh, is superior, and will drives our ability to control all aspects of the agent, no matter where they are.
Love that. Thank you. How do you find the experience of scaling secure remote worker based on customer requirement? I think particularly in the CX space, that's something that you need, right? You have seasonality, you have customer demands hitting that. So how do you find the scalability?
Yeah, we're always able to make it work. Again, going back to the if it's too easy, it's probably not secure enough. Um, there is friction on getting some of this into the devices of the agents, and but I will say it hasn't slowed our company down. We are still, if you look at our offering, our promise, we're kind of like this. A lot of times, companies leverage us as almost an insurance policy. We'll be working with them year round, but uh, and 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 that's great, and that's what we prefer. But it's amazing when they have a major event, like I say, a hurricane hits Florida, which seems to happen pretty often these days. Um, when those things happen, we can bring in 1,000 agents in a day or two, and that is not ThinScale is not holding us back there in any way. We care for the installation process a little bit more. We put some resources around that to make sure the agents have support there because it can be challenging. Um, but again, I like that because it says this is secure, and again, if as long as we're getting through it, that little bit of friction I think is worthwhile. And yeah, no, it's to me it is the most when if you think of a metrics of scalability versus security, ThinScale is kind of maximizing both to the degree possible.
Super, super. Compliance obviously is always a very hot topic, I imagine, from for your customers, but also your customers' customers to them, right? How do you feel what the importance is of compliance in the context of remote working?
I mean, as important as everything else I've said about security. I mean, I think that's a package deal. You can design the best stack and the best process, and but if you're not compliant to that process and you can't validate that everything that everything that you're putting through that process is actually kind of following the script or following those expectations, you're it's useless. I mean, you've got some major gaps. So when I look at the deployment we've made with ThinScale, like we have full visibility to monitor compliance and to enforce compliance. Sometimes you don't even have to monitor it because you can just enforce certain things, like your your ThinScale instance won't work properly if you're not plugged in to the internet or something like that. I love that because now it's way less for me to manage, and I have 100% confidence that we're complying in whatever aspect, whether it's a security compliance, whether it's a device compliance, or across the gamut. I think that's the key.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to another organization in a similar situation on reducing costs while still meeting their customer expectations?
From ShyftOff perspective to reduce cost, the model that we've developed, is uniquely capable of reducing costs. Whether we operate, mostly in the United States, we do have operations outside the U.S. as well, but the the economics are the same no matter what. We are showing that our technology and the opportunity to bring in workers exactly when you need them is saving customers anywhere from 30% up to 50%, sometimes more, because you're just optimizing your staff. You don't have people waiting around during slow periods, which is very costly, and you can get people exactly when you need them when the peaks happen, which is notoriously difficult. So if I'm a contact center operator, I've always believed I have been a contact center operator, and that's what inspired me. I had just enough pain to decide to take on another more, maybe potentially more painful decision to start a company and uh, to solve the problem. I was getting beat up all the time on missing peaks and overstaffing during
I
valleys.
hear that so many times from our contact center operations. So
Do
that's
you?
interesting. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, I got an angry phone call from my boss. You know, twice a day about that. It's usually at 6 p.m. when everyone's trying to go home for the day, but also everyone's calling. Oh man, it's brutal. And then there's just times that they've got a lot of people sitting idle because you just the staffing clumps up, but the calls aren't there.
Absolutely. So I do hope that some of our customers as well are listening to this and hopefully see some benefits of using shift off for those peak periods too.
Yeah, and I'd say the other thing too is like we operate for brands. We go direct to brands fairly often, but I would say the majority of our business is other BPOs too. So other BPOs can see the value, whether their customers are demanding better flexibility and better pricing, those things, or if they're just trying to operate more efficiently themselves. The BPOs get that, and so a lot of our partners are through BPOs. And then, but also our brands, especially the more sophisticated workforce management teams, where they really are taking the call to action seriously. Of, yeah, I need to increase my service levels, but I also need to reduce cost, um, and I need to make operations easier. That's the other thing too. You could do all of this without the burnout that you put your team through, or trying to really optimize it. So that's a great thing, and I think if you can, when I talk to any prospective customer for the first time, there are two questions that I jokingly tell the team I will put money on. I'll put my rent or whatever on the fact that this question will be asked, either first or second question, and the question is usually around security. And so that's another reason I like to come to the table with, yeah, well, we brought a bazooka to the security question, and you don't have to worry about that. And here's all the documentation, because it does require you to light up a lot of people across the states or whatever region, and that are remote, that you've never met before. You got to trust that. And so, yeah, to me, if you're getting that flexibility and you're solving those real business problems, you also need to make sure that you're not creating other problems downstream. And I think we do a good job of that.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Last question really from myself is would you recommend ThinScale to others in the industry?
Oh, of course. Yeah. No, I do, actually, all the time. Especially recently, I think we've been working with you guys for what, 6 or 9 months. I can't remember, but we're in there, and we've seen cycles, and I have confidence now. We've done it multiple programs. We've rolled it out. And so actually I have some friends in the industry, other honestly competitors. Even I come to them, and they'll come to me like, "Hey, how'd you solve this problem?" And I'm happy to share. It is a world where I think people. I'll go on a limb here a little bit. I don't think any of us fully understand it as well as we think we need to present ourselves as understanding it. And data security is a very complex topic. And so I think we're all kind of learning, and so I have no problems. In fact, I think it's really good to share the best practices. And so, yeah, I talk about that scale a lot. And I'm always happy to share that.
Yeah, appreciate that, Trevor. Any final thoughts? Anything that you want to leave our audience with here today?
Yeah, I guess one final thing. Deployment's kind of tough, and it should be. I think you have to look at the good side of that. And I think you have to be ready to have a team that is internally that's gonna drive that for you. They've got to be engineers. You've got to set this thing up the right way, and they need to understand the product. And I'll tell you that that's what we did, um, and we're very, very happy about it. Hopefully that's helpful for somebody like who's doing that first deployment, which is like a little uncharted territory.
Absolutely, and I appreciate your open and honesty. And look, it's nice to see how that has paid off as well for you guys. And look, very much looking forward to that continued partnership. But I think I've taken up enough of your time, Trevor, as always. But very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time and for your open and honest conversation today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and yeah, appreciate it.